Hello, and welcome to Musings from the Mystics. I'm Marnie.
And I'm Natalie. We are your guides on this crazy and sometimes tumultuous journey we call the human experience.
Each episode will share our musings about the current energetic climate,
how we're navigating these times,
and tips to help you get the most out of your journey.
So join us to be awakened, empowered,
and expand into conscious action. Today's mission is You Are Not Your Thoughts and Repeating Patterns.
So it's a really big deal to figure out that you are not your thoughts. And it helps you in our being more authentic with figuring out that you are not your thoughts. And I have a definition here of what is a thought: an idea or opinion preceded by thinking or occurring suddenly in the mind. So they are in the mind, and that's where most things come from. But we want to elaborate on that and feel things from our heart, not just our mind.
Yeah.
So
we live in a culture that's super mind, brain focused. It's like that is the predominant. It is all important. How smart are you? How intelligent are you? What kind of, everything is about this brain focus. And so I think that's why it's so easy to attach to thoughts, because we think we are our brain.
We totally think that. And in addition to what you just said, we're trained the same thing. Like, you can't, when you're little, you can't just say, I like X, Y, and Z. There's somebody somewhere around that's going to say why. Mm-hmm. And then you have to think about it and go into it, which makes everything like it's that whole conditioning from the time you're born all the way up. So we want to talk a little bit about that. And we also want to talk about beliefs, which is part of thoughts, because a belief actually is just a thought that you keep thinking over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And you either attach to it or you let it go.
Yeah. I like to say you bought into that.
Right.
Like somebody said this thing and you bought into it, and now it has become this truth, but that just because you bought it and just because somebody said it doesn't make it true.
No, and there is the opposite to that. Like, if you say something, now you have all these people saying, like, really? Is that true? And Googling it and saying, no, I found the opposite. So there's a whole bunch involved with all of this, because there's the part of, if I keep thinking it over and over and over again, I'm buying into it. Mm-hmm. Or it's the, I don't believe what you said, and I have to show all of my justifications for why it's not a belief. And it really doesn't have to be quite that hard.
That's interesting too, because in the context of our quest of the true you, for me, I know a lot of information that, some of it, lots of people have written books on it, but I don't know the information because I read that. I know the information because I trust my inner knowing, because I trust that the information I get is coming from a higher source. But when you rely on other people to justify the thoughts that you have, you're denying that really authentic self that may already know or know something different that we know. And like I always say, we believed the world was flat until we knew differently. So just because information says it's this way, I always say that's what we know now. That's what we know to be true at this moment. But that doesn't mean that something else isn't more true, that everyone else just haven't figured it out yet. There isn't quote unquote scientific research or lots and lots of books about it. So when we're talking about thoughts and what we buy into, understand that whatever you're buying into, be it spiritual advice or personal growth or what have you, that's what we know in the moment. So it's important to really get in touch with our authentic inner knowing more than what the brain thinks or has to be justified. Does that make sense? Am I making myself clear?
You are making yourself clear. No, and that absolutely is true. And it's the other thing, like, the other night I was talking to my husband and we were saying, I said, the full moon is whatever day it is. And he's like, are you sure? It looks like it is right now. And I'm like, I'm not even going there. I'm not entertaining this conversation. I know when the full moon is. I'm just going to go with it and let it go. But I had to have that conversation with myself and saying, Siri, what day is the full moon this week or next week or whenever it may be? So it's one of those things that you have to go through too. So I have a little exercise that if you can just observe a thought rather than think it. And when I say observe it, it means if there's something there and you can take yourself up, let's say 30,000 feet, and observe it from above, you can realize that, oh, that's a part, but it's not actually me. It's just my mind thinking something.
I love that.
And that helps you to, again, realize, A, you're not your thoughts, and B, oh, okay, I can observe it. I don't actually have to buy into it, attach to it, any of those kinds of things.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. When you observe, not having judgment or attachment to it. So I always like to say, isn't that interesting? Right? I'm having this thought, I'm having this fear, I'm having this whatever come up. If you can, like you said, go up 30,000 feet, have a bird's eye view, like a big picture perspective, and say, that's interesting. Why do I think that way? Here we go back to the questioning, right?
Absolutely.
Why do I think that? Where did that come from? Is that true for me?
Right. And a lot of us, and again, it is, and we're going to repeating patterns, which is next, but it is a repeating pattern of, let's say, you're 3 years old and your mother says, don't go outside without shoes on in the rain, you're going to catch a cold. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
Okay, I did believe that because she was the authority figure at the time, but do I believe that
There's
now?
actually no scientific proof about going outside and getting wet. It's attached to getting cold.
Exactly.
Right. But if you believe it, it happens because our bodies believe everything we think, say, and do, which is another reason it's really important to not attach to our thoughts.
Correct. And if you believe it, you're allowed to believe it. We're not saying that that's wrong, and we're not judging anybody for having some of those beliefs. But again, the sit back, tune into your body and say, okay, I did believe that, or I did think that was true, or I believed whoever told me that, but is it really resonating with me right now? Do I believe that right now? And there's a lot of people that will have a conversation or somebody will say something and they'll say, did you know, I'm going to use the generic term of sugar is bad for you. And we all can pretty much agree sugar is bad for you for the most part, but you can choose to say, it's not bad for me. It's not going to go that way in my body. I can process it. It goes out. Like, it's things like that you have to figure out and what's going to work best for you and what you want to do with it.
Yeah. My favorite one is that when people are like, it's flu season, and I'm like, there's actually no scientific proof to back up flu season. It is manufactured by the pharmaceutical industry in order to get you to take flu shots. Now, if you believe there's a flu season and you take a flu shot every year and that works for you, it's because you believe it to work for you. It doesn't mean you have to have it or that there is this made up season of having the flu. It's only that you bought into it, that your body believes it, and so therefore it responds positively to the flu shot, whatever, and it works for you. And again, we're not telling you not to have that belief. We're saying, though, that is a belief you've bought into, and so that's where you are. And you can always change those things.
It can, because that belief started with a thought, which is where we started this conversation is. It was a thought. Oh,
I'm going to get sick if I don't get a shot.
Somebody on the news told me, like, I have to get this shot, or I don't know, it's like 2% of the population dies from the flu. You know what I mean? And I don't even know that. Don't quote me on those statistics because I'm making that up totally out of nowhere. But it starts with that thought. Oh, they just said that. And it's a fear-based thing, and I can see it for a fear-based thing. And if you can or can't, either way, you still get to decide, oh, do I believe that? I don't know if I believe that. What do I think about that? And tune into yourself and feel rather than think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the important thing is Make sure the thoughts that are going through your mind are thoughts you actually believe, that you just haven't bought into something somebody else has said, that it feels and resonates true for you. And if you don't know, take that bird's eye view, look at it. Is this something I want to believe? Is this a thought I want to continue to put energy into and therefore believe, so that it now affects my life? And be conscious of the thoughts that you are perpetuating.
And I even want to take it to the next level too, because Marnie and I, what we do with our work, we do give advice, we do help people. But if it doesn't resonate for you, it doesn't matter who it comes from.
Right.
So if I go see Marnie and Marnie's like, oh yeah, you were, I don't know, a witch in a past life. And I'm like, no, I wasn't. That doesn't resonate for me. It's my choice to believe that or not believe that. It's, if I go with Marnie and knowing that it doesn't feel right or doesn't resonate with me, I'm giving her my power. I'm giving my power away instead of tuning in and saying, no, I don't know that I was. I don't know. Maybe it was something else coming in or whatever it may be, but you still are the one in control and you have the power to decipher what's best for you.
Of course, I would not tell you to believe anything I said anyway. I would not encourage you to go against what resonates for you. Just a caveat there. This was an example, not a true thing.
Exactly, wholeheartedly. But that's a lot of people going to a doctor kind of thing. And I'm not saying, again, good or bad going to the doctor, but we have this conditioning or this thought that, oh, you went to medical school. You know more about me than I know about me. And that is not the truth. The truth is they're there to guide you. And we have given these people so much power that we're just going to say, oh, yeah, sure. All right, that works. I'll go do that. Yeah, no problem. Instead of actually feeling through it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're recommending. We're not saying good or bad. Don't go to a doctor. Do whatever you want. Just make sure it's right for you.
Yeah. So with the thoughts and the beliefs come the patterning or the conditioning, right? So do you want to speak on that?
It does. And it goes into, we've said a couple different times, autopilot. And autopilot, a good example for this is, again, you get in your car, you drive to work, you go the same way to work every day, and then you're like, oh, were they green lights? Or were they red lights? Because you're on autopilot and you don't even know how you got from point A to point B. So that's an example of an autopilot thing. Like, you were not in this moment. You were not paying attention. You might have been running through 30,000 things in your head. But you were on autopilot driving to work. So, and that's where we come up with a repeating pattern. Repeating pattern, autopilot, they're actually very similar things.
Okay. And so how does that apply to the thoughts?
So it applies to the thoughts of pay more attention.
Don't be on autopilot with your brain. I think that's a given, yes.
Right. Well, and the sheer definition of a pattern is something that repeats. So something that repeats over and over and over again.
So like the stories we tell ourselves.
Yes. And any stories, anything you say, even the simple, and Marnie loves to relanguage anything.
I do.
But the way that we talk to ourselves, like you get up and look at the morning, oh, I have crazy hair today. Well, that's probably not the nicest thing you could have said to yourself. But we're like, oh, but I wasn't really serious. But those words have meaning. And that's a repeating pattern. If you do that every day, you're going to wake up with crazy hair every day because there's a law of attraction factor in there too. Just like we were talking about the thoughts and the beliefs and you're going to respond to whatever it is you're thinking.
Yeah.
Another pattern, when you're angry, you raise your voice.
Yeah.
So
now it's become a belief.
Now it's become a belief, but it's also a cause and effect kind of thing. So I was angry, and so now the effect is I raise my voice. But now every time, because I've noticed that, or that's what I do, it becomes a pattern. Instead of saying, oh, this was just this one time, it doesn't have to
be that way.
repeat.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. And there's a lot to observing these repeating patterns too, because you can change them.
Yeah. I think we experience repeating patterns in not only thoughts but behaviors. And so much of that comes from conditioning, how we were raised. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, and so this is always going to happen. And oh well, this runs in my family, so it's going to happen. We create patterns out of beliefs. And for instance, like we seem to be talking a lot about medical stuff today. It's funny. All of the now deceased family members had experienced arthritis. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I have consciously said, just because it ran in my family and every woman had it, I am not going to do that. So I've reversed the pattern, right? And
Correct.
I have made a pattern of saying, nope, I am not going to experience that. I am not going to have that pain. I do choose not to live that way. So I have so far been able to counter that physical pattern through the retraining of my thoughts and my own patterns.
Exactly. And it's as simple as taking a pause. When you see the cause, whatever it may be, we'll go back to you're angry. Mm-hmm. You can feel that you're angry. You know that. Well, instead of raising your voice and responding, take that pause.
Or reacting, actually. It's a reaction
correct.
Versus a response.
Exactly. That's true too. Take the pause.
Mm-hmm.
Take a breath before you react, respond, whatever it may be. And then now you're making a conscious thought, mm-hmm. but you're doing it consciously and you're observing it, and it may change your response. It may not change your response. You may be like, yeah, I am totally pissed off. I am yelling at you right now. Like, you have gotten on my ever last nerve, and this is how I am going to react. But you're making a conscious choice to do that.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about the pause button before. I love visuals. I think it's really important to have metaphors or visuals, something that's a cue that changes or gives us the opportunity to change our behavior. So when you're feeling a thought happen or a pattern of a behavior or thought occurring, if you can imagine this giant pause button, right? It's like 6 inches big. It's red, and it literally has pause written across it. And you can see it in your mind's eye, and you can be like, stop. And like, I actually visualize like everything, like time standing still. I have a movie playing in my head. Time stands still, everything freezes. It's like, it's totally a movie scene. And I'm like, okay, wait. What's actually happening here? And the thing is, people think, well, I don't have time to do that, right? But our brain is capable of immense amount of calculations incredibly fast. So pause can be a couple of seconds.
Exactly.
That allow you to stop your automatic response, your autopilot reaction, and allow you to look at, wait a minute, what is happening inside of me? What is going on? What is this thought? What is this belief? What is this pattern? Do I want to continue to behave this way? And that is like golden.
It is, because you've just empowered yourself. You've
Yes.
made the conscious choice, and you've empowered yourself, which again is getting to the true you, being more authentic, because you are making a choice instead of just automatically reacting.
You're making a choice based on you versus the conditioning that you have received or the thoughts or beliefs you've bought into, right? So,
correct.
And your behavior may not change. That's okay too. But at least you've said, yep, this is, I am authentically pissed, and I need to respond in a way that stops this behavior or whatever it is that needs to be changed. Or, okay, yes, I'm upset about this, but my reaction of yelling is not going to glean the results that I am looking for in this situation. So how can I do this in a different way that, corrects the situation? That pause gives you that, like, this huge opportunity to really tap in. And I think that's where we lack authenticity and self, is not just responding on auto or reacting on autopilot and buying into the thoughts and the beliefs, but how do I actually feel about this?
Right.
That is authenticity
Oh,
at its best.
it is. And it's funny that you said the pause button. I literally just told a client yesterday, I said, picture me talking. I said, I did say yelling. And then I was like, if you don't really want me yelling at you, it's fine. But I'm yelling stop with the big stop sign. Stop. Just take a breath. 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to make a conscious choice.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, and that's where we can make a difference with ourselves, and we can see the difference in ourselves. And it doesn't seem like it's that much, but it will make a huge difference.
It will. And I want to say, it's not something that is like a one and done. It's a practice, right?
Yes.
And sometimes you're going to be really good at remembering the pause and like, wait, what do I really think? What do I really believe? It's a matter of like tuning in and listening to yourself. What are the thoughts? What are the words coming out of your mouth? And practicing, do I actually believe this? Do I want to say this? Is this true to me in this moment? And sometimes you're going to be great at it, and sometimes you're not going to be great at it. And it's important not to go into self-judgment and be like, oh my God, I fucked that up again, or I keep doing this thing. It's important to say, okay, I missed it this time. I'll get it next time. It'll be okay, right? I'm growing and learning, and I'm doing the best I can in any given moment. That's a really important piece of, and I know this isn't necessarily the topic, but it's a really important piece of this growth process and finding your authentic self, is giving yourself grace and ease and being like, okay, today was not my best day and tomorrow I will do better, and allowing yourself the space to do it. Because the minute you don't do that, the minute you judge yourself for it, you throw it out. It didn't work.
Yep. Nope.
It didn't work. I'm not changing anything. Nope. I can't do this. I'm just going to go on.
I'm going to go back to my old ways.
Go back to my old ways, which is what your brain wants you to do.
It does.
It doesn't want you to change. So there's going to be some resistance internally to any kind of changes that we're talking about, but especially the thoughts. This is a hard one.
It is a hard one because we've done it for so long.
Yeah.
Probably somebody who's 10 to 15, probably a little easier
Right.
for them to learn this, to pause and make a conscious choice. And it does. It makes, again, our simple, not easy kind of thing.
This is maybe sounding like we're a broken record, but it's important. I think it's important to keep saying and keep iterating. This is a practice. Becoming yourself authentically without the patterning and conditioning of anything, it's a practice, because we have been taught how to conform, how to just go along, how to do autopilot, but we haven't been taught how to listen to self. So I'm 54 years old. If it took me 54 years of, I have this pattern, it's not going to change in one practice or a month of practices. It's going to take time to shift behaviors, to shift patterns, to shift beliefs. But if you come at it with, but this is important to me, being my authentic self and having my own thoughts and my own actions that are true, if that's important to you, it's worth the effort.
It is. And the other point that I want to say is that ultimately it all falls on us. Like, we are responsible. But on the flip side, it happened last night. I called Marnie and I'm like, I am cranky today. I am flat out cranky. I don't know why. I don't know what I did. And I was going into the almost wallow mode, like, trying to figure out every reason. I was totally judging. Like, what did I do? Why am I so cranky? Why did I react like this? Why did I say this? And Marnie basically said, you're allowed to have a bitchy day every now and again. Like, it can happen. It's okay. So you can reach out to other people who are supportive, who can say things like that. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel it. But
Yeah, we're certainly not advocating that you be all rainbows and sunshine all of the time, because that would not be authentic.
no.
We are advocating that you be true to yourself in the moment. And if, sometimes we're overtired, overworked, whatever is going on. There's Schumann going off the charts, solar flares happening, whatever, right? And we're like, I'm exhausted and I have no patience and everyone is irritating me and pissing me off. So you know what? Okay. Hey, y'all. Not you, it's me. I'm going to go and lock myself in the bedroom. Leave me alone. It's just the best thing is to not talk to me today.
Do not talk to me right now today. And again, we're ultimately responsible, but we can reach out for help. Like, there is two sides to that coin too. So nobody can change anything but you. Nobody can take responsibility but you. But you can ask for support, help, and guidance to get through a challenging situation or time or whatever it may be, to make the conscious choice, to stop the thought, to stop the belief, to react differently in a way that makes you feel better yourself.
Yeah, you could even, if you have a buddy who gets it and is also on a spiritually growing path, hey, will you remind me gently, like, I like code words or like funny things that like will bring you into awareness that aren't like critical and pointed, like, you're doing that thing again. That is not helpful to anyone.
No, that is
Don't
gonna
do that.
that will have the
that's
opposite
not
effect
helpful.
immediately.
But you could be like sparkling unicorns or like
I love that.
come up with something. There was a friend I had and I was like, you're circling the drain, and it was like just a cue to them that it wasn't offensive, but it was something that where they could be like, okay, I need to pause and let me think about how I'm behaving and what I'm thinking right now, and is this working for me? So if you have somebody who's helpful, come up with cute little things that will make you laugh, because often these moments are kind of tense.
Yes.
They tend to be tense when we're like believing something that we bought into but isn't really true. So if you can find something, that's my tip.
Yeah.
If you can find a fun little saying word, that's your safe word with your friend. Hey, you're doing that thing. You're buying it. Do you really believe this?
Right.
Whatever it is. I think that's a fun way to, and if you can tell it to a spouse or a partner, also, like, hey, will you help me with this? But it's not your job to correct me. It's not your job to fix me. You're just bringing my attention to it. That's
Right.
all you're doing.
That I'm doing that thing.
Yeah, I'm doing that thing, so I can stop and think about whether I want to continue doing this thing or not. Like, do you deserve this thing?
Yes. And I want to bring up too, the key point that Marnie just said there is make it fun, because I think I've done it. My sister has done it. Like, let us know when we're acting like our mother. And then you say, hey, you're acting like mom. And it just brings up all those old memories.
And defense mechanisms
right,
go up.
exactly,
Walls go up.
like-
Because nobody wants to hear they're acting like their mother, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to hear that. So the walls go up and there's no getting in, right? There's no
Right.
awareness that's going to happen once that is. So yeah, finding something fun
Right.
that is lighthearted and can take your mind out of that space.
Right.
And again, this is a practice. You learn to make sure you have guidelines and boundaries set if you have somebody helping you out with this, with someone, that they are not to then correct you or like say anything other than the code word.
Right.
Unless you engage in a conversation and you
Correct.
ask questions. And then you have to be willing to hear what they have to say. So, create a safe space to have that kind of conversation.
Yes, and a little bit of a give and take. Like, same thing. We said, tell us when we're acting like mom, not knowing that mom was the trigger
Right.
word that was like, oh no, well, forget it, not going there, I don't want to be like her, I'm not like her, no. So something that will open you up to be willing to have a conversation about it. Yes, definitely find something.
And not derogatory. You want to make sure it's not triggering in any way.
Correct.
The mom thing. Or derogatory or mean. Like, that isn't helpful to anyone.
No.
Teasing, poking fun, that is not helpful. It needs to be something that's like, so you pick your word and they pick their words that they feel comfortable with. I think that's the best way to do that.
I think that's perfect too. And you will see a difference. It will help. It will give you that
awareness.
Absolute awareness.
You'll start to recognize, oh, I'm doing that thing. Oh, I'm saying that thing. I'm falling into that autopilot thought or comment or whatever it happens to be, and you begin to recognize it. So I always like to tell clients there's stages to growth, right? First, there's like, okay, I'm doing this thing and an awareness of this thing. And then being able to stay conscious and act on it, right? Or to stay conscious and pause and recognize it. Okay. And then the step is, now how can I do something different? Let's change the behavior, the thought, the pattern, whatever. And then conscious action, right? And actually being able to catch it before it comes out of your mouth. Right? So there's many steps here. Now I'm catching it before it comes out of my mouth, but I'm still having to retrain my thoughts because they're so patterned, they're so conditioned. And then eventually it gets less and less and less. They happen fewer and farther between. It takes you less and less time to recognize it. And it's a process, right? It's not overnight.
No.
But there are many steps to it. So just becoming aware is a big deal.
Yeah, recognizing it is definitely the first major step to say, oh, okay, here's where I am. And that here's where I am and it's okay. It is okay. Don't judge yourself, like we just said, but recognizing it. And again, even if you do it, even if you go off on that autopilot, oh, okay, I see what I did. Next time it'll be better, or next time it'll be different, or something of the sort.
And I think the reason this is really important to, well, obviously I'm all about relanguaging, but being conscious of thoughts and patterns is, as long as you are living in that autopilot way, as long as that's happening, you're never going to get to the point of authenticity. If your thoughts are just conditioned, your thoughts are there because somebody else put them in your head, and this is now the belief that you have, you're never going to grow beyond that. No. You're at a wall, and there's no getting over it without looking at, do I really think this? Is this what I believe? Am I living what I'm saying? Which is another huge thing. Am I actually living in the world in the same way that my words are? Are they reflecting each other? And usually not. Usually not at all. And then to be able to be very conscious about who you are and what you think and how you move through the world. It's the only way to be authentic.
It is. And the only other word that I would add in there is, does this work for me?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, because I think that's important to, like, okay, maybe I do believe it, but does it really work for me?
Yeah.
That's a good one to throw in there.
It's about asking questions, which we don't do.
No.
We just go, I have this belief. But do you?
Right. Where'd it come from?
Where did it come from? Yeah, yes. I mean, so many things. When I first started on this journey, I would say things and I was like, wait a minute. Where did that even come? That's something my mother said. I found myself repeating things my mother said all the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a minute. Where did she get that from? And is that true? Wait a minute. I don't believe that.
Right.
And I had to start, like, I regurgitated everything that my mother said to me. And I was like, and she was very smart and very amazing. I'm not dissing on my mom. And also she had the same thing. Lots of patterning, lots of conditioning based on her traumatic childhood and so on and so forth. And she just repeated things. And I was like, but maybe that was true, but it's not true anymore.
Right.
Think about how much we've changed societally. Each decade is so very different.
It is.
So it's that sense of needing to really look at where our thoughts are coming from.
Well, and back to the old Google machine too, because if you're going to look up something, which we all have phones in our hands, we're all going there, you can almost always find both sides of the coin.
Oh, you can find something to justify
anything.
Anything.
And everything.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm cautioning that because if you're looking for the justification outside of you, that's not going to work either. It's the inner knowing, the inner feeling, the do I believe this? Because I can tell you, you can find everything you need to find out there for whatever direction you want to go, whether sugar's good for you or sugar's bad for you or whatever it may be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then if your thoughts have to be justified by something else, is that really you? Is that authentic?
Right.
Not really.
No, it's not. Definitely. So, lots for you all to think about with this week.
For sure. Again, keep asking questions.
Yes, that's the key to everything.
The key to everything. Keep asking questions. Thank you for joining us. Until next week, in peace and love and light, this is Marnie.
And much love and appreciation, this is Natalie.